The galaxy knows no dearth of secrets or surprises, but Deadworld was an anomaly, even by those expansive standards. Once a thriving hub of interstellar commerce and diplomatic rendezvous, its sudden descent into a silent, barren wasteland puzzled the brightest minds across star systems. Now it beckoned as an unspoken challenge, an enigma wrapped in darkness, awaiting an answer or perhaps an adversary. At the edge of the Epsilon Eridani system, a sleek vessel marked with the insignias of the Human Frontier Coalition, HFC, cruised through the void. The ship, the Prometheus, was an explorer-class frigate known for its resilience and adaptability. On board, Captain Helena Zhao surveyed the data streaming in from the front lines of space. "Looks like we're the first humans to eyeball Deadworld up close in over a century," Zhao remarked, her voice a mix of anticipation and wariness. Beside her, Lieutenant James M. Rack, a rugged veteran of border skirmishes, nodded. "Yeah, and there's a good reason for that. Records say any ship that tried to land in the last 100 years never came back. It's like they vanished into thin air." "That's the part that gets me," chimed in Dr. Eliana Cruz, the ship's lead scientist. "Deadworld's atmosphere and surface are stable. No toxins, no radiation spikes, nothing. It's as if the planet itself is fine, but it's eating ships." Helena tapped her fingers against the console. "Well, that's what we're here to find out. Eliana, have your team ready for a surface op the moment we land. We need answers." The Prometheus descended through the dusty red atmosphere, its hull whispering against the eerie stillness of Deadworld. Landing was smooth, unsettlingly so. The crew disembarked, suited up in their biosecure gear, with Helena leading the way. The surface of Deadworld was a stark contrast to the bustling life it once harbored. Buildings stood like skeletons, their structures eroded by time, yet oddly intact. The air was silent, devoid of even the whistle of wind. It was as if the planet held its breath, watching the newcomers with unseen eyes. "Spread out, but stay within comms range," Helena instructed. "Scan everything. I want logs, samples, visuals, anything that can tell us what happened here." The team complied, moving through the ruins with practiced caution. Dr. Cruz's team collected soil and air samples, while the security detail, led by Lieutenant Memrak, scanned for any signs of life or anomalies. It wasn't long before Sergeant Ava Reed, the team's tech specialist, called out, "Captain, you need to see this." She stood beside what appeared to be an ancient terminal, its screen faintly glowing under layers of dust. Helena approached, curiosity piqued. "Can you access it?" "Give me a few minutes," Ava replied, her fingers dancing over the portable interface she connected to the terminal. Minutes stretched into an anxious eternity until the screen flickered to life, displaying a log dated just before the fall of Deadworld. The message was fragmented, but the urgency in the recorded voice was palpable. "Not alone here. Something else is static. Can mimic. More static. Lost half my crew already. It learns, adapts. Don't trust anyone not verified." The log ended with a scream and the terminal went dark. Helena felt a chill run down her spine. "Eliana, James, on me. We need to discuss this." As they gathered, Helena looked at her team, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. "It seems Deadworld isn't as dead as we thought. We're dealing with something that can mimic human behavior. Keep your guards up, verify each other's identities regularly, and stay sharp. We're not just explorers now. We're also hunters." The chapter ends as the team regroups, their mission parameters fundamentally altered. From discovering what happened to surviving whatever still lurked on Deadworld, the stakes were higher than any of them had anticipated. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the eerie glow of Deadworld's twin moons cast long shadows among the ruins. Helena and her team advanced cautiously through the decaying streets, their footsteps muffled by the ash-like soil. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the crackle of comms and the occasional beep of scanning equipment. "Keep your eyes peeled," Helena whispered into the comm, her voice a low rumble of authority mixed with tension. "Whatever is out here mimicked humans well enough to fool their own kind." Dr. Cruz, her brow furrowingly focused on her datapad, stopped abruptly. "The soil samples show irregularities in the isotopic signatures that shouldn't be possible naturally. It's almost as if they've been artificially altered at a molecular level. James Amrak, his hand resting on the butt of his blaster, scanned the horizon. Artificially? Are we talking about advanced terraforming or something more sinister? Helena shook her head. Too early to tell. Keep collecting data. Every piece could be the key to understanding this place. A sudden movement in an upper window of a nearby tower caught their attention. Sergeant Ava Reed readied her weapon, her eyes narrowing. Movement, upper quadrant. Could be our mimic. Or a survivor, Eliana added quickly, the possibility igniting a spark of hope amidst the dread. With a hand signal, Helena directed 2 of her team to flank the building while the rest covered them. They entered through a shattered doorway, their lights piercing the gloom. Inside, the building was a labyrinth of corridors and collapsed rooms, the air thick with dust and decay. They reached the staircase leading up to the source of the movement. Helena ascended first, her pistol drawn, her heart pounding against her ribs. At the top, the door to the room was slightly ajar, inviting yet ominous. Pushing it open slowly, Helena peered inside. The room was cluttered with old equipment and debris, but what caught her eye was a figure huddled in the corner. It was humanoid, thin and ragged, its eyes reflecting moonlight. "Don't move!" Helena commanded. The figure flinched but obeyed. James and Ava entered behind her, weapons trained on the figure. "Identify yourself!" James demanded. The figure's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. "I am Dr. Soren Markov, of the Terran Geological Survey. I thought I was the last one alive." Helena lowered her weapon slightly but kept her guard up. "Dr. Markov, what happened here?" Dr. Markov's eyes darted around nervously. "It was the project, designed to create adaptable organisms for terraforming, but they evolved too quickly, became too efficient. They started mimicking us, replacing us. I've been hiding for months, trying to survive." Eliana stepped forward, her curiosity as a scientist piqued. "You're saying these organisms can mimic anything? Even humans?" "Yes," Markov nodded slowly, "and not just physically. They absorb memories, knowledge, everything. They could be anyone." The implications of his words sank in, chilling each member of the team to their core. Helena re-established comms with the rest of their group outside. "Maintain high alert. Verify identities every hour. The threat can mimic us perfectly." As they escorted Dr. Markov back to their makeshift base, the moons of Deadworld loomed large, casting an uncertain light on the path ahead. The team was left to wonder how many were still human, and how many were something else entirely. The lines between friend and foe, between human and mimic, had blurred into a dangerous and deceptive dance of shadows. The camp was tense, the air thick with suspicion and the metallic taste of fear. Every member of the crew was on edge, their eyes darting, searching for any sign that might betray a mimic among them. They had set up an improvised verification system based on personal questions only the true person would know. But the effectiveness of such measures against a creature that absorbed memories was debatable. Helena stood at the center of the camp, organizing patrols and overseeing the fortification of their perimeter. "Keep your comms open at all times," she instructed. "If anyone goes silent for more than 5 minutes, assume compromise." Dr. Markov, now somewhat cleaned and given a spare suit, assisted Dr. Cruz with the analysis of the collected data. "These mimics, they're not just mimicking human form," Markov explained, pointing at the shimmering images on the screen that showed molecular structures shifting dynamically. "They adapt at a cellular level. See here? This is a human DNA strand, and next to it, mimic DNA. Initially distinct, but watch when exposed to human tissue samples." The screen displayed the mimic DNA assimilating, and then beginning to mirror the human DNA structure almost perfectly. Eliana, her fascination tinged with horror, recorded every detail. "So, they can become virtually undetectable. How do we fight something like that? We may need to think beyond traditional methods." Helena mused, her mind racing with strategic possibilities. "If they use our DNA against us, maybe we can do the same." Night fell, and with it came an oppressive silence. The twin moons cast a ghostly glow on the ruins, the shadows seeming to move with malevolent intent. Ava and James led a small team to establish an outer perimeter, their movements slow and deliberate, their senses strained to the utmost. Suddenly, Ava's voice crackled over the comm. "Contact! West Quadrant! 300 meters from the main camp. We have movement." Helena responded immediately. "Hold your position. Identify. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." The team waited, breaths held as the figure approached. It was a lone human, or so it appeared, staggering towards them with a limping gait. "Identify yourself! Final warning!" James's voice was stern, his finger tense on the trigger. The figure stopped, raising its hand slowly. "It's me, Raj. Raj Gupta." The voice sounded weary but unmistakable. "Raj was with me at the East End 10 minutes ago," came another voice from the comm, ice-cold with dread. Helena's mind raced. "James, Ava, detain him. Use maximum caution. He's not Raj." As they moved to intercept, the mimic's form shimmered and twisted, becoming a blur of motion faster than the eye could follow. It lunged at Ava, who barely managed to dodge aside, her laser cutter slicing through the air where it had been a fraction of a second before. The mimic, now revealing its true, formless, shifting nature, was a mass of dark, oily tendrils, each one writhing and reaching for the soldiers. Helena barked orders into the comm. "All units, converge on the West Quadrant. Use electric and fire-based weapons. Standard projectiles won't work." The battle was chaotic. The mimic was relentless, adapting quickly to their tactics, its form constantly changing. It mimicked their voices, calling out for help in the voices of their comrades, trying to trick them into lowering their defenses. It took all of their combined strength and firepower to finally subdue the creature, its form eventually collapsing into a motionless heap on the ground, charred and smoking. The team regrouped, panting, shaken by the encounter. Helena surveyed her team, her expression grim. "This is what we're up against. Stay vigilant. Trust no one until they're verified." As they returned to the camp, the weight of their task seemed even heavier. Deadworld was a planet of shadows and deceit, and the night was long. The crew settled into a watchful, uneasy vigil, knowing that the darkness held more than just the night. Helena paced the perimeter of their makeshift camp, her eyes scanning the darkness beyond the light thrown by their portable lamps. Every rustle in the desolate wind, every shift in the shadowed rubble, seemed to promise another encounter with the mimics. The weight of command bore down on her, each decision layered with the potential of fatal consequences. Inside the command tent, Dr. Cruz and Dr. Markov delved deeper into the molecular structure of the mimic they had subdued. "The adaptive mechanism is incredibly sophisticated," Markov noted, zooming in on a 3D model of intertwining DNA strands. "It's like nothing we've ever seen. The mimics don't just replicate physical appearance, they weave themselves into the very genetic fabric of their host." Eliana's hands hovered above her tablet, making minute adjustments to the model. "This might explain their ability to evade detection. They don't just hide among us, they become us, at least on a cellular level." "Which means there could be a way to detect them, something they can't mimic perfectly," Helena suggested, leaning over their shoulders. "We need a test, something definitive." Markov rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Perhaps if we modified the environmental scanners to detect anomalies in the energy signature during DNA replication, it might reveal inconsistencies unique to mimics." "Get on it," Helena said, turning back to monitor the camp's defenses. "Time isn't on our side." Outside, the night deepened, the twin moons casting a pallid light over the desolate landscape. Ava and James, now back on patrol, kept their weapons at the ready, their trust in shadows utterly eroded. "Check in," Helena's voice crackled over the comm, a constant reminder that vigilance was their only safeguard. "Clear on the north side," reported one of the guards. "East sector all quiet," another confirmed. The comm was deceptive, each report heightening the tension. It was Ava who broke the silence with a sharp intake of breath. "I've got something. Sector 4 by the old communications relay. Movement, not human, not animal." Helena responded immediately, her voice calm but urgent. "On my way. Maintain visual but do not engage." Gathering a small team, Helena navigated through the ruins, the beams from their flashlights slicing through the darkness. As they approached the location Ava had mentioned, The outline of the old communications tower loomed against the sky, its structure twisted and broken. There, in the shadow of the tower, was the source of the movement. A group of small, childlike figures. They were huddled together, their features indistinct but unmistakably not human. As the light caught them, they turned, their eyes reflecting a luminescent glow. Helena held up her hand, signaling her team to stop. "Lights," she whispered. With a click, the flash recognized their humanity and dimmed, leaving only the eerie glow from the beings before them. "We don't mean you harm," Helena called out softly. One of the figures stepped forward, its voice a curious melodic lilt. "Nor do we, human. We are not your enemy. We are those left behind, altered but not lost. We seek refuge, not conflict." Helena lowered her weapon, her instincts telling her to trust, despite every caution. "What happened to you?" "The project that birthed the mimics changed us too," the figure explained. Some resisted, retaining enough of themselves to remain sentient, separate from the hive intelligence of the mimics. We hid, fearing we'd be mistaken for the enemy. Helena considered the implications. Allies in this form were unexpected, but not unwelcome. "If you can prove you're different, you could help us save my people and yours." The figure nodded, gesturing to the others. "We will show you. We can detect the mimics in ways you cannot. Together we can find them, expose them." As they walked back under the dim glow of the portable lights, the camp seemed to thrum with a new tension as Helena introduced the altered beings to her team. The crew's initial skepticism was palpable, their eyes wary and hands instinctively hovering near their weapons. However, the serene demeanor and gentle voices of their new allies slowly eased the atmosphere. "These beings call themselves the Remnants," Helena briefed her team. "They've survived the same process that created the mimics but retained their self-awareness and individuality. They can detect the mimics in ways our technology can't yet replicate." Dr. Cruz, ever the scientist, was fascinated. "This could be a breakthrough in understanding the mimic biology. Perhaps we can learn from the Remnants how to enhance our scanners or develop a biological test." Markov nodded in agreement, his eyes flickering with the fire of curiosity. "I suggest we start joint experiments first thing tomorrow. If we can understand the biological markers they use to distinguish real from mimic, we can develop a more effective detection method." Helena organized a meeting spot away from the main activities of the camp, where they could discuss and test their theories without risking the security of the main group. The Remnants, led by their spokesperson who called herself Lysa, seemed eager to cooperate, their expressions marked by a somber understanding of the stakes. As the night progressed, patrols continued their rounds, their movements now shadowed by a pair of Remnants who communicated softly with each other, their senses tuned to detect any sign of mimic activity. It wasn't long before their unique abilities proved invaluable. Lisa stopped abruptly, tilting her head slightly, as if listening to a frequency beyond human perception. "There is one among you, not far from here," she whispered, her voice tinged with urgency. Helena signaled her team to follow Lisa's lead. They moved stealthily through the ruins towards the eastern sector of the camp, where the Remnant had indicated. There, hidden in the shadows behind a collapsed wall, they found one of their own, or so it appeared. "Step out into the light!" Helena commanded. The figure that emerged was shaking, its eyes wide with feigned fear. I don't understand. It's me, Peterson." But Lisa shook her head. "No, this one is not human. It is mimic." With careful precision, Helena approached, her weapon trained on the figure. "If you're really Peterson, tell me something only he would know." The figure hesitated, its eyes darting nervously. Then, with a sudden blur of motion, it morphed, its body becoming fluid and elongated, lashing out with tendrils that whipped through the air. The battle was swift. With the Remnants guiding them, the team neutralized the threat with precision, avoiding casualties. Once subdued, the mimic's form dissolved into the amorphous pool that was becoming hauntingly familiar to the crew. Back at the camp, the mood was somber but determined. "This proves we can fight them, that we can win," Helena said, addressing her team. "With the Remnant's help, we'll develop a way to detect these mimics before they can do harm." The next morning, Dr. Cruz and Markov, assisted by Lisa and another Remnant named Merrick, set up an improvised lab. They began the delicate process of analyzing the biological markers that distinguished the mimics from both humans and Remnants. "This substance here," Merrick pointed out on a molecular scanner, "is unique to mimics. It's a kind of signature protein not found in any Earth-based life form." "Can we track it?" Eliana asked, her eyes never leaving the screen. "Yes," Merrick confirmed. "With the right modifications to your equipment, you could scan for this protein signature. It would alert you to the presence of mimics without needing direct contact." Work continued throughout the day, with both teams collaborating to adjust the human scanners with the new data. By evening, a prototype was ready, a device capable of detecting mimic signatures at a distance. As Helena held the device, as dawn broke over Deadworld, the light seemed to carry a new promise. The camp buzzed with cautious optimism as Helena briefed her team on the day's objectives. With the new detection devices in hand, they prepared for a coordinated sweep of the area. The objective was clear: identify and eradicate any remaining mimics within the vicinity. "Remember, these devices give us an edge, but they're not infallible. Stay sharp and stick to the plan," Helena instructed, her voice firm and commanding. Each member of her team, equipped with a newly modified scanner, nodded in understanding. The operation began at sunrise, with teams moving out in formation, their paths predetermined and their roles defined. The Remnants, now integral members of the team, provided guidance and insight, their unique abilities enhancing the effectiveness of the scans. Helena led one of the squads personally, her scanner gripped tightly as she navigated through the ruins of what was once a bustling market square. The device emitted a soft hum, its screen flickering occasionally as it detected traces of the mimic signature protein. Suddenly, the device in Helena's hand beeped loudly, the screen flashing red. She raised her hand, signaling her team to halt. "Contact straight ahead," she whispered, her eyes scanning the debris in front of them. The team tightened their formation, weapons ready, as they approached the source of the alert. There, hidden beneath a pile of rubble, was a mimic, its form currently a grotesque imitation of a human, its features blurred and shifting unnaturally. Without hesitation, Helena gave the command and the team unleashed a barrage of fire from their energy weapons, specifically tuned to disrupt the mimic's cellular structure. The creature shrieked, a sound that was both human and utterly alien, before collapsing into a lifeless heap. "Area clear," Helena confirmed, her scanner passing over the remains one final developed time. The threat neutralized, they moved forward, continuing their sweep. Throughout the day, similar encounters unfolded across the ruined city. With each success, the team's coordination improved, their movements becoming more fluid, their responses more precise. The mimics, cunning as they were, could not stand against the combined might and determination of Helena's team and their remnant allies. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the land, the team regrouped at the camp. The atmosphere was one of subdued triumph. They had cleared a significant portion of the area, and while the victory was not without its tensions and close calls, it was a victory nonetheless. Helena stood before her team, her expression one of pride and relief. "Today we turned the tide," she said, her voice resonant with hard-earned authority. "Thanks to each of you and our friends," she gestured to Lisa and Merrick. "We have a fighting chance at reclaiming this world and understanding the forces that sought to take it from us." That night, as they gathered around the campfire, the stars overhead seemed to shine a little brighter. Stories were shared, laughter rang out, and for a moment, the horrors of Deadworld receded into the background. However, the fight was not over. Helena knew that other settlements, other planets might be facing their own hidden wars against mimics or threats yet unknown. The knowledge and technology they had developed here would need to be shared, their strategies honed and adapted for future battles. "We've made progress," Helena mused to Dr. Cruz as they watched the fire dance against the night sky. "But this is just the beginning. We need to be prepared for whatever comes next." Eliana nodded, her eyes reflecting the firelight. "We'll be ready, Helena. We have to be." As the fire dwindled to embers, Helena looked out into the darkness of Deadworld, a world no longer dead but alive with possibility and peril. They had found their match in the mimics, but more importantly, they had found their measure as protectors of humanity and its allies. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, but tonight they celebrated their survival and the survival of hope on a world that had once seemed hopelessly lost.